Hey everybody, I'm here today to talk to you about IBS, IBD, and the Low Fodmap Diet. Before I get into this video, I want to say that I am not a medical professional. I am somebody who has IBS and IBD, and I'm talking to you just in layman's terms to keep it real. But if you have more questions, I highly recommend that you talk to your gastroenterologist or another doctor that you trust that knows about these things. So, jumping into the video, IBS and IBD stand for two different things. There's irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease. Now think about it. Irritable and inflammatory, syndrome and disease. With IBS, it still gives you these killer symptoms of, cramps, bloating. Sometimes you can have an imbalance of bacteria in your gut, and the syndrome itself basically entails that you are having some problems with your digestion and the way that your food is moving throughout your colon and digestive tract. With IBS, it can help to regulate your diet and do those sorts of things. Stress can induce IBS symptoms. I know a lot of people in law school that have IBS because of just the sheer amount of stress you're under, and they get it during law school. With IBD, you are having an autoimmune disease that is attacking your own body. And IBD consists of Crohn's colitis, specifically ulcerative colitis, because you can have colitis and not have ulcerative colitis. And I'll explain that difference. So Crohn's happens in your small intestine, colitis happens in your large intestine, and intermediate colitis happens in between those two places. Now, why I say that you can have colitis and it cannot be ulcerative colitis is because doctors call the act of getting ulcers colitis, whereas ulcerative colitis is the autoimmune disease that causes your body to attack itself and give you ulcers in your colon that can cause internal bleeding, and that's a big way that I figure out whether I'm having an IBS flare-up or an IBD flare-up. I see if there's any blood in my stool, and I also get my doctor to check my calprotectin levels in my stool tests. And if any of this grosses you out, you're in the wrong place, because these are the real things about these syndromes and diseases. Now, the Low Fodmap Diet is super helpful. It's a pain in the butt, but it's super helpful in determining what you can and can't eat. And that can help you just manage your symptoms, but it is not a cure, and it is not something that is sustainable long term. A lot of people have started using the Low Fodmap Diet as just a substitute for, I don't feel well, so I'm going to go on the Low Fodmap Diet. In actuality, the Low Fodmap Diet is intended to be used to figure out what your triggers are. So the whole point of it is that you get foods that are lower in FODMAPs, which I will link my blog that explains all of this, and basically you're trying to figure out what's really upsetting your digestion for either condition. So you go on this very bland diet. It's all labeled out. The link in my blog, I have an entire grocery list of what you can buy and what you shouldn't be eating, and I'll put that below in the description. But with that diet, you're going to a baseline, then you're slowly going to start introducing foods in a period of 2 weeks time. So maybe you introduce apples and you see how apples make you feel. And then if you say this is kind of hurting my digestion, maybe that's something you stay away from going forward. So I know personally, and I might do a different gluten video later, but there is a difference between being celiac, having a gluten intolerance, and having a gluten allergy. And for some people, they say, I just don't eat gluten because it does not make me feel good. For me, if I eat gluten, I might get some hives on my skin, but I'm not celiac because celiac is an autoimmune disease in itself related to gluten. So that's a really big distinction to make, is that you are supposed to be trying these foods, and they're supposed to help you rein in what you can and can't eat. So I know personally that I shouldn't be having too much caffeine. I love coffee, so that's an issue. But I know that if I have an excessive amount of caffeine, it will severely hurt my stomach. I also know that stress will activate or cause a flare in my IBD or my IBS. And with IBS, you can have these cramps, you can have like bloating, discomfort, to the point that it makes it difficult to even focus on anything, or you're lying in a ball in your bed because you just can't move, you're in so much pain. And with IBD, you have that as well, but you also get chronic fatigue. You can have issues with your serotonin levels, because that's made in your gut. Doctors that you go to will have a lot more helpful tips on medication or anything. I definitely want to avoid talking about medication on this channel, because I know that it is a very touchy subject for a lot of people. I might get into what I do personally or some of my views, but I haven't really decided that yet. However, for IBS, you can use antispasmodics prescribed by your doctor. You can mitigate your stress, you can look into your diet. Sometimes you might need an antidepressant to help with serotonin levels that will help your gut. And then with IBD, you might need, some more intensive things, but both things are highly stress related. And for me, going into law school, I started going to a cognitive behavioral therapist to learn how to manage the stress, to make sure that I wasn't going to be in a bad position, because I didn't have a normal body. And that's another thing that's very frustrating about these diseases, is that IBS and syndromes, is that you see all these people around you that have these normal lives and they can handle all these things, and it can almost make you resent yourself or your body that you maybe can't handle as much as they can, especially when you're in like a very competitive job market or education field. It can be incredibly frustrating. I think a big thing too is that throughout law school and to the point that I am now, a lot of people have made this distinction of, and not even a distinction, a lot of people have wrongly thought that their IBS and IBD were the same thing. And one of them, especially during these times, I don't want to use any trigger words that will get YouTube to take this down, but especially during this pandemic, it is so important that you know that if you have IBS, that does not affect your immune system. IBD is an autoimmune disease. IBS is an irritable bowel syndrome. So if you have IBS and you've been freaking out about, I'm like at high risk or something, your immune system is not compromised, your immune system is not, irregulated. The biggest thing is that your body and your digestive tract, it isn't functioning to the level that it could be. And a lot of that might be because of bacteria or other reasons. I mean, a lot of people, they say they have IBS, but I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go to a doctor, specifically a GI, that can tell you, do the right tests and tell you what you have, what they think a good course of action is, and, help you get some alleviation of your symptoms. So, I hope everybody found this a little informative. If you want more information on the Low Fodmap Diet, I would recommend going to my blog. There is a lot more information on there because I actually take the time to sit down and research it. Sometimes some of my articles I've taken about a month to fully research, to make sure that I have all the science and that I'm not just, saying things to say things, or just speaking from my own experience, because everybody's body is very different. So I think that that's a really good place to go, especially if you want things in layman's terms, because a lot of this stuff can be super difficult to follow. And I've had conversations with people who are recently diagnosed, and they say, "Oh, is that what that means? I wish it was explained to me like that." So if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I hope that I shed a little light on the differences between IBS and IBD, in the sense that one is autoimmune, one is not. They both have similar symptoms, but in one you're going to have internal bleeding and in one you're not. So I hope that this has all been informative and that you guys have a good rest of the day. So and a good Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day. So have a good one, guys. Bye.